Have you ever experienced a challenging situation that left you struggling to manage your emotions? Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the demands of daily life, especially after experiencing a traumatic event? Do you ever feel like you were just going through the motion, lacking the energy or motivation to take care of yourself? Why is self-care often the first thing to go when life gets tough? Are you tired of feeling as if your emotions were controlling you rather than the other way around? Join me after the intro for a conversation with a very special friend with whom we will answer this and many more questions. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's start. Hi, I'm Rossana D, and this is Forgive and Thrive, a podcast where we explore what thriving in life means and how we can achieve it, irrespective of our past, current condition, and expectations that those around us or society in general may have. Let's go. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. In the wake of trauma, navigating the turbulent waters of our emotion can feel like an overwhelming challenge. Yet amidst the chaos lies the opportunity for profound healing and growth. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, self-care is often considered as a luxury rather than a necessity. And I must admit, I'm as guilty as charged. I find it difficult to prioritize myself even when exhaustion is evident. So today we want to change this view and uncover why prioritizing our well-being is crucial, especially during times of emotional chaos and disruption. We explore the profound impact that self-care practices can have on our mental and emotional resilience and how they can help us managing our emotions, avoiding destructive emotional roller coaster, and restoring balance and emotional stability. And we dive into this fascinating topic in a conversation with our guest, Jacques Delorme. Jacques is a science educator, public speaker, life coach, and author of Driving Out of Darkness, Self-Care Strategies for Trauma Recovery. He has dedicated the past 11 years of his life to personal development, including multiple training courses. His deep interest in public speaking and support program, using the concepts taught in his book, will help anyone recovering from trauma or dealing with someone who is. Hi, Jacques. Welcome to the Forgive and Try show. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
I love talking about this topic because, as I just said, I'm not very good at prioritizing myself. And when there are issues like trauma and recovering from trauma can be very dangerous almost not to take care of ourselves, right? So I'm very eager to know your story and your strategies for self-care and how we can create a routine, for example, for ourselves. But before we go into that, I would love to start with you and your journey into discovering self-care strategies and its importance.
Back 11 years ago, when I started doing personal development, it came from the need to try to get through one of the most difficult struggles people go through, which is a divorce. I was struggling with my marriage, trying to get through and trying to keep myself in one piece when things were falling apart. And my journey started there, but then my world took another turn 2.5 years ago when I experienced a trauma. It was the October of 2022. I was on my way east here in Canada. I'm from Canada. I'm from Saskatchewan. I was headed into another province to meet a real estate coach that I had hired. And it had gotten to be after dark. I'm on number one highway, which is a major highway in this country, and it's 120 kilometers an hour I'm driving. And I'm looking for something to eat because I hadn't eaten yet. It's 8 o'clock at night and it's COVID era. So I'm going by a gas station on the far left-hand side of the highway, across the divided highway, and lights are on, but there's no vehicles. There's nobody walking around. So with it being COVID, everything shuts down in Saskatchewan at 7 o'clock in that time frame. So for me, I'm like, I don't know if it's open. So I kept going, not expecting to be able to get anything to eat. Highway curves slightly to the right, a little bit downhill, and I never saw him. A 24-year-old man was riding a pedal bike in the middle of my lane, and I hit him. I had no chance to react. I never saw him. It's a pitch black night, moonless night, so I had no chance to see him. No reflectors, dark clothing. I didn't have a chance. I hit him dead center of my car. His body comes up over the hood of the car, smashes into my windshield, and then bounces up and over and lands somewhere in the highway behind me. I pull over as best I can. Windshield's destroyed, so I can't see anything. I use the side window of my car to see the side of the highway to pull over safely and hit my flashing lights and dial 911 to try and get some help. Lady I talked to checked me out first, and I was fine. The airbags in my car didn't even go off because his body wasn't heavy enough to slow the car down. So airbags didn't even go off. So I'm perfectly fine. And we chatted for a little bit, and I said, well, I've got to do something. I feel like the need to do something. Why don't I go back and see if I can locate him, see if he's alive? I don't know if he's alive. I don't know what condition he's in at this point because I was going really fast when I hit him. And I have emergency first aid, so I have a way of actually helping. So I walk back to about 75 meters or so back to where his body was, and he's lying in the middle of the highway, right on the dash line that separates the two lanes. I'm across from him. It's only about 8 or 10 feet away, and I'm calling to him, and nothing. He's not moving. There's no visible signs of anything wrong with him, but that doesn't really mean anything. And the 911 operator indicated, don't go out there. It's way too dangerous. I'm wearing a dark blue golf shirt and blue jeans. I didn't see him. Somebody coming around the curve will not see me, and I put myself in danger. So I was told to stay where I was. And it's a good thing she said that because right then lights come around the curve. It's a mid-size SUV, comes around, and I'm thinking, good, I'll get some help and we can hopefully do something to help this guy. So I'm waving and calling out, and they never saw me. Then they never saw him and ran over him. The instincts when people are driving is not to hit something with your tires. So you either swerve right and avoid whatever's in the highway, or you swerve left and you take it between your tires. So it goes underneath your vehicle and you don't hit it with your tires. I don't know why they chose what they did. They swerved left, took the body between the front tires. And with being a mid-size SUV, there's no clearance for a human body. It's too low to the ground. So you can hear the body tumbling underneath the vehicle as it passes over, going full highway speed. Laws of physics, the body went from being like this, head was facing oncoming traffic, and did this, and launched it like an arrow following behind the vehicle as it passed over. So it was about 7 feet in the air, launched them about 50 feet down the highway. Traveled through the air, landed, rolled, and stopped across the right-hand lane of the highway. The SUV braked for about 2 or 3 seconds and hit the gas and left. They didn't stay. And to this day, I have no idea who they are. We've never found them. We have no, the police never found them. We have no idea. No one ever came forward. So at this point, I'm in shock. I don't know what to do. I'm just aimlessly walking at this point, kind of going back towards my vehicle. 911 operator, she's getting a play-by-play as this is happening. She goes quiet for a little bit, and then she comes back on going, get back to your car. Because somebody trying to swerve to avoid him is possibly going to hit me. And it puts me in danger. So I'm walking back towards my car, and not a minute goes by, and there's a whole big set of lights and a loud noise coming from behind me. It's a semi with a flatbed trailer, so a big vehicle. And where's the body right now? It's in the wrong spot on the highway. It's in the right-hand lane, and you cannot move a vehicle that big that quickly. So I know what's coming. So I'm waving, I'm trying to get the guy's attention, trying to do something to warn him that there's a body coming up not far ahead. But with the speed he's traveling, he has no chance. The driver's side tires go across the body, right across the pelvis, and run over him again. So at this point, it's enough's enough. I get back to my car and get inside. The semi had stopped a little ways up from where my car was. And I go in and just wait for the police to show up. Eventually they show up. I just see them in my rearview mirror. I get out of the car to meet them, and the semi is gone. He took off too. Both vehicles that were involved both left. At this point, I'm feeling terribly alone and really not knowing what to do. I'm in complete turmoil and I'm struggling. And after I do all the investigation with the police, I was there for over 3 hours. waiting for them to get through the pieces that they need to get through. They sent me to the hospital to get checked. I had a small cut in my right hand, right about here, from grabbing glass to put my car in park. The flying glass had a shard on my stick shift, and I put my hand on it and shoved glass in my hand. So I was bleeding. Got to the hospital to get the glass out. Took about 10 minutes. Did my statements, and I was free to go. But go where? I don't have a car. So my parents came and got me the next day, and I knew at that point that I was in trouble. I was struggling emotionally with what had happened. So I was going through the whole process of okay, trying to settle my brain down, and I didn't know what to do. I was struggling badly. I eventually got a hold of my healthcare provider from work to try to talk to somebody. And the response I got was not the one I was expecting. They said, "Oh yeah, we'll book you in for an appointment next Thursday." This was a Thursday. They wanted me to wait a week to talk to someone, and I can't wait that long. I need to do something. So they said, "Okay, we'll put you on a call list, and somebody, if they have time, will call you sometime, maybe today, tomorrow, we'll see. We don't know." And that's kind of the response I got. 5 hours later, I had a conversation with a younger lady, it sounds like, based on the voice, and was completely useless. It was frustrating. I'm an adult male, I'm in my 50s, and I was treated like I was five. She had that really soothing voice, like, "It's okay, you'll be all right. No, no, it's all right," but really unhelpful. I trying to be like you're placating a child that's scraped their knee in the playground, is the way it felt. And I just shut down. And I really didn't know what to do at that point because I was now stuck with I'm on my own. I tried to reach out to others, but it only helps so much unless it's professional help. I eventually got my way to a couple of people that did give me some help, but I learned pretty quickly early on that I need to do something for me. And that's where the self-care piece comes in from my book, that I needed to find a way to get myself to calm down and not allow triggers to send me back to the same state I was in when the accident happened. And that was happening over and over again. So my stress level is always a 6 or 7 every day, constantly. And as soon as something stressful happens, could be something as simple as somebody says the wrong thing. That's enough of a trigger. I go to a 10 and I just want to hide. I just want to go away from everyone. I want to go home, crawl into my bed under the covers and just hide. And I didn't want people knowing. I had a huge fear that people are going to label me a killer, and that stopped me from talking. And for somebody who's going through something traumatic, that's not a good thing. So I needed to find ways to try and get better. And that's where the self-care piece started for me.
Wow, Jacques, first and foremost, I'm really sorry that you had this very traumatic experience. I cannot imagine anybody going through something like that and coming out of the other side as they enter that situation. So I applaud you for being here, for telling your story, and for having the sort of embraced what happened and turn it around into something that is positive. Yeah, I feel you. I hear you. There are different aspects here. One is the self-care and how we come out of it, of that situation. And then there is the emotional aspects that is connected to the experience in itself. And perhaps we go back to the emotional aspect towards the end. What do you say? And
That's fine.
we start talking about this self-care, and in particular, for example, what does it mean really taking care of yourself in a way that you can function? Because sometimes when you listen or you watch for self-care methodology, oh, have a bath or go out for a walk. And I burned out 5 years ago, and I can tell you, yes, they are nice if I'm in a good state, but when I'm really low, actually they don't really help me. I don't have the energy even to go and have a long, relaxing bath. I don't know what that means. So, what is self-care for you personally?
Self-care for me, what I learned early on after I was starting to see a psychologist for a little while, I saw one, but with him, it was every 2 weeks. So that's pretty typical of psychologists with a higher degree. They're very busy, especially with the post-COVID. Mental health became a large topic after COVID hit because people got isolated and it created a lot of mental health issues with a lot of people. So the healthcare system is overloaded at this point. And I learned that pretty quickly, especially with the time frame that my accident happened. It was during that COVID era. It was in 2022, just post-COVID. So there's a lot of difficulties trying to get any sort of help. So when you start looking at what counselors can do, which is a little bit easier to get into, is more of them, but then you need the right type of counselor, especially when dealing with trauma versus just normal stressful life. It's a different dynamic to it, and it takes somebody with a certain skill set to be able to help deal with you. But that's only once a week. So what do you do the other 6 days? And that's the part that I looked at going, I'm okay if I see somebody that's a specialist and I get some help. I had somebody I was doing that with. Turns out she was a life coach as well, which helped. But I went through neuro-linguistic programming to help deal with the emotional piece for me. But what do I do when I'm not with her? So I needed to find ways to deal with my constant triggers that were sending me back to that state that I was in because of the trauma. How do I break that connection? Because every time I got triggered and put back there, you get this big heavy feeling in your sternum and chest that sits there. That's that stress ball that some people call, and it hurts and it just won't go away. Like I had to find a way of trying to get that to stop. But the triggers was part of it, that if I can get the triggers to not be as severe so that it doesn't take me back there, that's one piece that I can deal with for myself because it's me controlling my own mind. The reptilian brain that we have is goes way back. Like it's called reptilian brain for a reason. It's the first one that developed in human anatomy way back millions of years ago, right? When humans developed. It's designed to protect you, but it's very, very childish. So it does things on a very factual basis and it just reacts, right? It tries to stop something from happening again. So what does it do for me? I'm driving and there's a cyclist on the side of the road. What's my brain do? Going, oh, watch him, he's going to come out in front of you again. And it's a trigger. Triggers me and I end up back in the state I was in when the accident happened. It's things like that that your brain will do trying to protect you. It doesn't always make sense. It's not logical what it's doing. It's just trying to protect you because it was designed back in the caveman era that you're always looking for danger. That's just the animal instinct piece that we as humans still have. We're still an animal. We have that instinct to always watch for danger. But in the modern world, where there are no saber-toothed cats, there's no big bears that are going to kill us. It's all the other stuff. It's the technology, it's the vehicles, it's all the other pieces that are around that. Okay, so what ends up happening for you is controlling what your mind is doing. So for me, self-care has a lot to do with controlling myself using mindfulness, using meditation, using journaling, using the different techniques that I learned to try to control what my brain was doing. I am still in control. I control my mind. My mind doesn't control me. So that's the piece I had to start to learn. So I started meditating a lot. I started using gratitude. Within research, gratitude has been proven that if you're using it, you can't have a negative attitude at the same time. They're yin and yang. So if I'm grateful for something in my life, I can't have that negative outlook of, okay, I suck. I'm terrible. I don't have, like, I have no worth. And all those sorts of thoughts that your brain will start to do to you, you can't do that at the same time and be grateful for something. So gratitude became a big piece of part of what I was doing in the mornings, part of what I did at night. Going to bed at night and waking up in the morning, I was waking up in a panic. But why does that happen? Whatever you think about the last 5 minutes before you go to sleep is what your subconscious mind will work on for the next 8 to 10 hours that you're sleeping. So I had to be very careful what I was thinking before I went to bed. If I was thinking about the accident, all the terrible stuff that happened, I'd wake up in a panic because my brain's been working on it for 10 hours or 8 hours. That's a problem. I can't wake up in a panic. My day goes terrible. So how do I solve that? I meditate at night. I do gratitude, keep myself in a positive mindset. So being very mindful in the moment to keep myself in that positive attitude when I'm sleeping. So when I get up in the morning, it's not anywhere near as bad. And I get up and I do the same thing again to start my day. So I'm controlling my mind by using something we call self-care, where I do things for me. And it's may seem to some people as selfish, but it really isn't. You need to take care of yourself first because you can't help anyone else if you yourself are in a terrible mindset. So self-care becomes really important to put yourself in the right state. I have two kids half time at my house. I'm divorced, but I have two kids. With me half time. How do I deal with them if my mindset's really terrible? So part of me was doing it out of being a father and making sure that I am in a good mindset to be able to deal with my family, be able to deal with people at work, be able to deal with my own life and not collapse and fall into the anxiety and depression that can happen if you don't take care of yourself.
Mm. I think it's very important. There are lots of people, and I have to say, I probably fall into that category, who often consider self-care almost like a chore. And
Mhm.
it's very difficult when you have never had a proper routine in that sense to start from scratch. When you are already in
Yeah.
your 40s or whatever. What would you say are some of the perhaps issues that can prevent people from having a self-care routine beyond, oh, this is selfish, or it's like a chore, like in my case.
Yeah. What you find from society is that, especially with something like meditation, the some of the instincts that people have, they go back 30, 40 years ago. Where was meditation primarily found? Well, you're a monk in Tibet. There's the mentality, right? You're somebody who's a monk who's up on a mountain, and those are the people that do the meditation. They do all those sort of things. That's hoodoo voodoo. That doesn't exist in mainstream society. That's so not the case anymore. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of organizations that teach about meditation. There's lots of it on YouTube. You can Google it, and there's all sorts of different programs, apps you can get on your phone to help teach people how to meditate because research has found it's extremely powerful in being able to calm yourself down, being mindful, being able to control your mind to try to get through some of the struggles that people are getting through. So it has a very positive outlook from people now within our society. There's still that sect that says, "Oh, you're just a monk," and it's just like, no, that stuff doesn't work. That's like voodoo. No, it's just that's all fake. Well, in reality, it isn't, and it's become much more mainstream than it used to be. Now, the struggle that you're having comes from a stigma that within society, people don't want to be viewed as being broken. So somebody who's going to look at self-care to a certain extent, they have to admit that I do have struggles. I do have things I'm dealing with. I need to do something for me so that I am better. But you have to admit to yourself, I'm not perfect. I have to admit to my loved ones that, yeah, I do struggle. I do struggle at times, especially from a man's perspective. Men are supposed to be, well, almost like the alpha male. You need to be stoic. You need to never cry. Need to always be in control. Nothing ever bothers you. You need to keep your center all the time. You're not allowed to show emotion because you're a man. Women is a little bit the opposite. Women are based on emotion, men are more based on logic. But that stigma, especially for men, especially in my world, that's what got me at the beginning, is that fear of being labeled, is that fear that I'm going to be seen as being broken and not wanting to admit that to anybody. And I spent 10 months not talking to the majority of people in my life about what happened. I didn't tell them. I told a select few, only a handful knew what was going on, but I was obviously struggling and people had noticed that. But I refused to say anything because I didn't want to be viewed as broken. I'm a man. I'm supposed to be stoic. I'm supposed to be strong.
Mm.
But how can I be strong when I'm falling apart inside? Right? He's like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. Yeah, I fell off the wall, all right. I had a huge crack, right? I call it a crack, not a break. I'm cracked. I'm not broken. I got a few cracks that I'm mending, like anybody else in this planet. We all have little cracks that we're fixing. Some of them it can be stay very personal, and you just do the work you need to do to get better. It does get easier if you have somebody who understands. somebody who understands the meditation world, somebody who understands journaling. If meditation is not your thing, there's lots of other things you can do. I do breath work a lot, like box breathing, for example, that I do to calm my central nervous system down. For me, getting triggered and going back to the accident, there was that physical break that I keep getting that I needed to start to control. I get that hard lump in my chest and my sternum, and I get that awful feeling. I feel like I'm falling into a depression from that perspective. And it's just, I needed to control that. So controlling my mind to stop my body from reacting was important. There's my self-care piece. And it's the breathing piece helped a lot to get that energy to dispel, at least some. And the more I practiced it, the more it worked. It's like anything, when you're learning, it takes some time. You're not going to fix it overnight. It takes some time. It took me 10 months to get to a point where I was comfortable talking about my story. And I started writing my book at that point. That's several months of going through a lot of learning, going through a lot of almost depression at some points where I needed to try to do the best I could just to get through the next day. I was able to do that. And the more I practiced it, the easier it got and the more of an impact it had. Whereas now I've got the tools that I've practiced enough. I know exactly what works from trial and error for myself because everybody's a little bit different. Like what works for me may not necessarily work for someone else. But I got to a point where I could use these little tools and I was getting better and I was getting better. Now I can talk about my story and have this discussion with you. My body doesn't react. I've gotten to that point now. It just takes a little time depending on what it is you're dealing with, but you can get there. And that's having the faith that what I'm doing is going to work. It's like going to the gym when you're trying to lose weight. Do you see something in the mirror as a difference within 2 days? It's not realistic, right? It took you years to get overweight. So why are you thinking you can do it in 2 days and you're going to see a difference in the mirror? Works the same way from an emotional perspective, from a self-care perspective. It takes time to develop that tool. It takes time to get that difference to start to become a habit in your brain. Once you start to find you're having that positive reaction, it's addictive. It's like going to the gym. It's addictive. Now, I have not missed a journaling in the morning since before my accident. That's been over almost 3 years of journaling. I haven't missed a day because it's part of my routine. It's part of something I know I need for me. I will not miss. I don't care where I am. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm camping. I'm on a trip. I'm on a holiday. It doesn't matter. I get up. That is the first thing I do because I know I need that for me.
Hmm. Isn't that a form of self love, an understanding of our self worth? We are worth spending those 10 minutes, half an hour, whatever, writing, journaling. Is it a way to perhaps have compassion towards ourselves? And when we don't take care of ourselves, perhaps we don't love ourselves enough. We don't think we are worth enough to have that little routine. What do you think?
That's exactly it. And part of the journey I went through with personal development is coming to the realization that a lot of the beliefs we have about ourselves were developed before the age of 5. They're childhood beliefs. And the ones that stick with us, and you talk to psychologists, and that very much is the way that a lot of us are. In fact, everybody's like that. If you go back to your childhood and take a look at why do I feel the way that I feel? Why do I feel that I'm not worthy? Well, how much compassion, how much attention did you get as a child from your parents? I didn't because of the way my parents were raised, big families, and just the nature of how they grew up. I've had discussions with them now, having come to that realization and telling them, I don't blame you for anything because it wasn't your fault. You did the best you could when you raised us. But my mother never hugged me as a child because of the way her father raised her. So it's generational. But I came to that realization that the belief I had that I was not enough, that I'm not loved, that I don't have value, that I always need to be the best at everything I do because that's how I show my value. That was me in a nutshell for a very long time. And I still do fight some of that. But that's the self-care piece where I start to look at the patterns in my life and start to look at it going, okay, but this is me and a belief that was developed that wasn't based on reality. My parents obviously do very much love me, but because of the nature of their past and how they were doing things as best they could, it created something in me that really wasn't based on reality. And I had to go, I just have conversations with my inner child. There's two conversations I have. One with my inner child under the age of 5. The other one's with my, what we call higher self, the person I want to aspire to be in my future, the perfect me. You can't ever get there, but having that conversation is important. Like, I need to have a goal of where I'm going to. What are the things I need to work on to be better? I go back to my child and have a conversation during meditation every day and telling my inner child that it's okay. You are loved. You are enough. You're always enough. You're perfect just the way you are. Some things happen, but it was a belief system based on a false assumption. I assume my mother didn't love me because she didn't hug me, but that's not based on reality. It's based on a 5-year-old's thinking because they haven't experienced life yet. So I was able to deal with that from that perspective. And then from there, I talked to my higher self to go, okay, what do I want to do with my life that makes me better? That's the self-care piece and the compassion piece for myself, for me. What do I want to do for me to get better?
Mm.
And have the resiliency to say, no, I'm going to keep working on that. I'm never going to get to the end. Personal development is not a get to the finish point and you're done. That never happens, right? There's always something else you can work on, always something else you can improve on, right? It's all about the journey, not so much the end result. If you can experience the journey, experience the things you need to experience to get better, you'll drastically change things in your life. You'll change things with your relationships. You'll change things with your coworkers. You'll change your perception of yourself to get so much better and quite quickly in some cases where sometimes it's a breakthrough and you feel that ball in your chest suddenly just goes away. And you suddenly come to a realization that no, I am okay. I am okay the way I am. There's nothing wrong with me. Somebody else's perception of me is not my business. That is theirs. That's not mine. That's theirs. They have that perception. I'm sorry if that's the perception you have. It's not based on my reality. You and I don't need to be friends. And you start to eliminate people that are toxic because it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's their perception. It's not you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have a go-to practice that you use to find inner calm?
There's three that I've mentioned that are my biggest ones. This is why I actually mentioned them. Meditation is one, to get mindful. I just calm my mind, eliminate monkey mind, where your brain just goes into overdrive. You calm that down. You're going to have thoughts that always come in, especially if you're not used to meditating. Thoughts always come in. You just go, no, I don't want to deal with that right now. You just go away. You just push it aside, go, no, later. Calm yourself down. Sometimes it's focusing on something, which will help. Sometimes it's meditation music. Sometimes it's a spot on a wall. It's something you're looking at where you focus on something just to calm your mind from the constant spin. And a lot of it tends to be negative because your brain's trying to protect you. It's a lot of negative stuff that tends to come in and it throws you off. But the more you get used to being able to calm your mind and being mindful, which means you're in the present moment of what is it I'm experiencing now. And that's where you had said walking in nature. That's one way of doing that. You walk in nature and you notice the things in nature you normally don't notice. The birds chirping, squirrel running around on the grass beside you, rabbits running around. I have lots of rabbits in my city. There's rabbits running around. You want to notice the rabbits with little bunnies, little babies running around, right? You'll notice dragonflies. You'll notice the sound of the wind or the sound of a rain as you're walking in the rain is wonderful. I find that's really good. And especially the smell of rain, right? Using your senses to get in touch with something outside of your normal world that you don't really notice a lot. Doing that sort of thing helps you get mindful, it gets you in the present moment and really calms your mind down and calms down a lot of that hustle and bustle that we just can't seem to get away from. So a walk in nature, for example, while you're meditating is wonderful, right? For being able to do that. I journal a lot of the times. What I find is that I put my thoughts on paper. It helps me organize my mind and helps me organize, okay, where am I going today? One of the statements I write on a daily basis is today is going to be a great day. And I say, why? What am I looking forward to? Well, there's the positive atmosphere that I'm trying to create within my mind. What is it I want to accomplish today that's so very good for me or so very good for someone else when I want to do something? When you're in a terrible mood, starting to fall into a depression, one of the things that research has shown how it really helps is to volunteer. Do something for someone else. Go to a soup kitchen and serve the homeless people soup. It has a wonderful impact on you to get out of that negative mentality. Oh, woe is me, where it's all ego based. It's all ego. It's all about you. It's all a victim mentality. We'll get away from thinking about you. Think about others within your world who have less than you have and go help them. Go volunteer, right? Costs you nothing, a little bit of time, right? Go volunteer for an hour at a soup kitchen. Go volunteer at a homeless shelter. Go do these little things to help other people. I've actually gone out and taken some cash with me, some change, and gone out and look up and try and find homeless people and give them money, give them change. Cost me $10, but $2, $3 for them is a big deal. We don't assume what they're going to use it for. Some people say, I'll never give to them. They're just going to go use it on drugs and alcohol. You don't know that. That's making an assumption you can't make. But doing things for other people really helps with your own mindset to get out of that self-victim mentality and looking at trying to help others to try and break that cycle.
Beautiful. Is there perhaps a self-care practice that you have struggled with, especially struggled to maintain over time? And if so, how did you overcome those challenges?
One of the things I think that would be the largest struggle for me is being consistent with some of the tools that I don't use as often. I tend to rely on some of the key ones, like I do the meditation, the journaling, these perspective in my day, changing my mindset on how I view things in my day. But then I will fall off the rails at times, or I get out of that pattern because it's your brain just doing what it normally does. It's trying to protect you. So I get upset when I really don't have a reason to. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. What's a normal instinct that the vast majority of people have? They get mad. They get upset. But what does that do to your mindfulness? What does that do to your mindset? What does that do to you getting mad at somebody else when you don't know what their world's like? And that's the way that I did my perspective on it. And sometimes I fall off the wagon with that, and I need to remind myself that you need to keep your positive perspective on things. There will be other people who have far worse lives than me. I'm not naive enough to think that my life is terrible because it isn't. And I believe that now. There's other people who are going through way worse than I'm going through. Maybe that person driving that car is one of those people. Me honking my horn at him and flipping the bird and yelling at him and doing all that, and then driving up fast behind him and trying to harass him. Maybe his world just fell apart and he's just not having a good day. Totally didn't see me because he's so distracted with his own world and struggling that he didn't see me, and it wasn't intentional. People don't do that intentionally. Some just simply don't know. Some are just bad drivers, but there's some having bad days. So me getting upset, honking my horn, doing all those things makes his day worse or her day. And it's not even typically males. It could be male or female. Their day suddenly is made a lot worse because of what I did. What right do I have to do that to them? And at the same time, it makes my day bad because it triggers me. So why do we do that? Where's our compassion for for them, but also for ourselves? When we start getting upset and pissed off at people and reacting, and it's like in a lot of cases, it's not intentional. It was just a mistake. Let it go. And that's something I still do struggle with, and just that's normal human behavior. But at the same time, I know better. I know what that does to me. I know what it could do to them. So I keep trying. I keep working at it to get better to not have those reactions. I think that's probably the biggest struggle for me is the mindfulness piece.
Mm. I can totally resonate with that. Absolutely, especially when there are situations that become triggers of events, perhaps that we had in the past.
Yeah.
You mentioned you have children. How do you help them creating self-care practices, and how do you explain what self-care can do for them?
With them, it's having them understand that when they're having a bad day, and it happens, both my kids have had it happen. I have a boy and a girl. They're 17 and 15 right now. They're turning 18 and 16 here in the next couple of months. And one's graduating, so he's on the verge of that adulthood where he needs to learn some of these techniques, learn how to be an adult, learn how to be responsible for himself, which is some kids will struggle with. He's pretty in tune with himself. He's pretty in tune with things, and but he has days where he makes a mistake. He's in tears. He's emotional. He's very much a mini me from an emotion standpoint. I can be very emotional. He's like that. I can relate to that. He and I have conversations on, okay, here's how I want you to look at it. Here's the perspective you need to have. Because they don't have the experience yet, they don't understand that piece very well. And that's the part that I try to teach both my kids is the perspective. Okay, so what are you really thinking right now? Okay, oh, you're thinking worst case scenario. Why are you thinking worst case scenario? Well, it's your brain just trying to protect you. But why are you thinking like that? What facts do you have to back up the way you're thinking? And he goes, well, nothing. I don't know that's going to happen. Proven fact, research. I read a lot of research, obviously. 80% of what we fear is going to happen never does. And that's something I use with them both is that, okay, so you're fearful of this happening. You got a terrible mark in that exam, suddenly you're like, oh, you're going to almost fail that class. No, you have an 90 average. Like when you, that's faulty thinking, right? Something as simple as that. Yeah, you're upset. It didn't work out. Okay, what can you do to move on from that? What can you do better next time? Where's the lesson to be learned and stop being a victim? So where's the bigger picture on this? Where's the lesson to be learned from that happening and help him process that, help him work through that and guide him, not tell him what to do, not tell him what to think, but help him explore that and discover it for himself on what could I do differently? What did I learn from this experience that I can do different next time? And one of the things I developed back a couple of months ago is part of the presentations I do in schools is talking about the journaling. And I actually set up a lesson plan for teachers to teach kids how to journal and how to put thoughts on paper, how to do that self-exploration piece. And I've created 3 journals that I now sell through Amazon with my other book as well, where one is for teens, one's for men. The other one's called an extended edition, which doesn't have the prompt. All of them have prompts, like to help people learn how to journal. But then the extended version is quite a bit longer. It's 6 months, and so it's quite a bit longer book. And with that one, there's no prompts. It's just an open book of here, just explore your thoughts, explore how you feel, explore what your life is like after you've already learned it from the other ones that we use to teach you. Right. So I have 3 journals that I do sell now, and I've given both to my kids. My kids use their journal. They write. I help guide them with what they're doing so that they learn the process that I use and they see me doing it every day. They know I get up way before them and I'm journaling every day. They know I do that. Now they understand why I do it because they can use it for themselves to sort out, especially as teenagers, where life seems out of control at times for them. They can use it to put their thoughts down to go, okay, here's something I need to do. Well, okay, that helped me formulate a response for myself. That helped me keep that thought and organize that thought to be able to deal with things that are happening. So that has helped a lot with them.
Yeah, I think that is a very important point. So, if there was someone listening now to this podcast episode and they keen to start their own self-care routine, what would you say? What advice would you give to them? Where should they start? Or could they start?
One of the easiest things to do with the technology age that we are in is to find people who already know a lot about self-care who can guide, and it's free. There's so much stuff you can do online. You can get on YouTube, do a quick search for self-care or something that you want to try, like meditation or journaling or breathing techniques, or all self-care sort of strategies. Where being mindfulness is a big one. Where you simply do a quick search on it, you'll have hundreds of videos that you could use to help guide you in, okay, here's where you can start. And it's nothing. All it takes is a little bit of time. to do a quick search. And you can find all sorts of people who are willing to help. Some will charge money, some will do a lot of things for free. It's in those videos. They'll teach you how to do a lot of it. And it's pretty simple and it's non-invasive where they have no idea you just searched that video. Part of why people don't do it is they have this fear of what people will think if they start doing it. No one needs to know what you do. Very few people, other than the ones obviously I present about it, but nobody needs to know that I am up at 5:30 in the morning and spending 30 to 45 minutes every single day doing my routine. Some days it's a little bit longer if I need a little bit more help for myself. Some days a little shorter, but no one knows that unless I tell them. So it can be a very private experience where if there is that fear, that stigma, where you don't want to be labeled as broken, no one needs to know. But if you want the help, you can get the help very anonymously by simply going through and finding those resources and be able to tap into them. There's apps like Calm, which is a meditation app, which it's a paying app, but there are several recordings, not videos. There are recordings for meditation to guide you that are free. You don't have to pay for it. Even though it's an app, there's several of them that's their enticement. They give you something for free to see if you then want to buy the subscription. I do things like Elevate, which is a brain working app. I pay for it, but it costs me $30 for a year. So it doesn't have to be an expensive venture to do self-care. There are lots of guiding ways of doing it from different apps, from different people online who will guide you in it, and it costs you nothing, and it can be anonymous if that's a part that's you are finding stops you from trying.
Mm. I guess there are so many ways to take care of ourselves, and we
Yeah.
need to find and customize to some extent that practice to our needs, isn't it?
Yeah, it very much is a very personal journey. What happens for me, what works for me, doesn't necessarily work for everyone. So what I do when I do the teachings of the things that I do, like for example, with stuff I've mentioned today, they're ideas. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm just saying this has worked for me. This is something you can try. If you'd like to learn more, come talk to me. Like I have no issue talking to anyone. I've had people reach out to me on my social media channels. I've had people email me through the contact form I have on the website for my book. And I have no issue talking to people to say, here's something that worked for me. Here's something that could work for you. My book explains several different ways that I have done beyond the three that I've talked about. There's other things I've done to work on me that by all means just grab the book. You can get it in Kindle format, which will cost you all of $3. It's cheap. You can get it. You can have Kindle readers online now. You don't have to have a Kindle to read it. You can read it online. They have a Kindle viewer, they call it, through Amazon. So it's really easy to tap into even things that I have taught or tap into someone else. Like I'm just out to educate people. I'm not expecting you to take me as the big expert and come see me. Yeah, I'm not like that. If you find it, I resonate for you, then by all means reach out. If you want to go take a quick look and you find others, great. I just want to lead people into that realm of self-care does really work. I'm a living proof of that. And just take a chance. Take a chance on being able to do something for you.
Absolutely. Jacques, you have mentioned just now judgment from other people, guilt. We have talked about emotions from the very start, from your story, what happened to you 2.5 years ago. And there are lots of emotions that we create that can be very disempowering for our life, as you already mentioned. How do you release those emotions? And in line with the name of this podcast, Forgive and Thrive, do you think forgiveness or self-forgiveness uh, have perhaps a role that can play when we want to release those emotions and perhaps be part of a self-care routine?
Part of the accident we didn't talk about was the cyclist. I very easily could get very upset at him for being there, for putting me in that situation. And then is the evidence that we found from talking to the corporal from the RCMP that was involved with the investigation and the things that I saw. The human mind has this interesting way of working where in a split second, especially in a situation where you're in shock, like for me, suddenly the cyclist is right in front of my car. I can remember in specific detail everything about what I saw right before I hit him. And that's the cover of my book is what I saw right before the impact happened. It was a split second, but I can tell you every detail about him. It's just the way the human mind works. So the things that I saw became really interesting within the investigation. Dark clothing, no reflectors. He's faced about a 45-degree angle going a little bit away from me, but he was looking down, never looked at me, which is very telling. When you're riding a bike and you're trying to avoid being hit, what's the first thing you do? You look at what's coming towards you so you can figure out, okay, I need to pedal here so I can avoid being hit. He didn't do that. He wasn't pedaling. He was coasting. So what we learned from all that is that he's on the side of the highway. As soon as he saw me coming in that lane, he coasted across and he waited for me. He was committing suicide. And we are 98% sure of that. Based on that and some other evidence that they found from his home and from his life and things they learned about him. But I don't know that detail, but it's something that they talked about a bit later with me, was that from the evidence they have is that yeah, he was there intentionally. This was on him. That helped me a lot to get rid of some of the guilt that I just killed somebody was something that went through my head a lot. That was the fear I had with telling anyone was that I didn't want people labeling me as a killer. I was scared. I was terrified of that. But the more we dug into the evidence that we had from the accident and everything, it was, yeah, he was there intentionally. He was ending his own life. That's not my fault. That is on him. And because of all the evidence that we had, I was never charged with anything. I didn't do anything wrong. He said that there's no way I could have avoided him. With going as fast as I was, it takes the human brain 3/4 of a second to register what you're looking at. It takes another 3/4 of a second to actually act on what you saw. So it takes a second and a half for me to recognize it and do something physically move to react to what I'm seeing. 1.5 seconds at the speed I was driving would take me 160 feet down the highway. I had zero chance of avoiding him. There's no way. So he knew exactly what he was doing. Like there's no way a human body can react that quickly and move a vehicle going that fast to avoid something in the highway. So he chose that for a reason, and it was his way of ending his life. So for me, I now needed to get to a point where the guilt for me, okay, I wasn't my fault, but I could very easily blame him and hold that anxiety and that all that whole emotional negative emotion against him for the rest of my life if I really wanted to, but I couldn't. I wasn't going to go and blame him for destroying parts of my life and putting me through this. I looked at it from a bigger picture, going, okay, he was struggling. That was his way out. He didn't stop to think because it's very ego-based with suicide. It's about them, right? They don't think about what does this do to someone else. He didn't think about what it would do to me. And I recognize that. And I don't blame him for that. He had to do what was best for him. At the end of the day, I got through this. It has put me on a journey of discovery for myself that I would never regret at all. I don't regret this at all. It's something I've learned so much about myself and learned so much about mental health in this process that I now became a public speaker. I became a life coach. I became an author because of what happened. And I educate other people because of it happening. In the bigger picture, I took something that was very negative and turned it into a positive for me that I absolutely enjoy. I love doing this. Like I've done 31 presentations since September on this topic and varying different groups and schools and libraries and podcasts and other presentations in different companies where I educate other people and I'm having an impact on other people's lives to help them to get better. So me blaming him for disrupting my life when it's something I turned into a positive doesn't make a lot of sense. So I've let that go. I've let that go and forgiven him for what he's done because it put me on a path that has absolutely changed the course of my life. And I don't regret it for a second.
Mm, absolutely. It's finding that blessing in disguise that changes the perspective that we have about the story that we tell ourselves, isn't it? So I totally love that. Jacques, coming back on you, is there anything that you are planning for the second half of 2024 that you want to share with us? Perhaps another book?
Um, I've thought of that, like to do a follow-up book to the original, like Driving Out of Darkness is my book on Amazon, so it's available around the world to anyone. I have it at all platforms that Amazon's on. It's in every country, so it's easy to find. Um, and what I'd like to do is to follow up on it on more of the self-care stuff. Where have I gone since then? What have I done? Almost like an autobiography of here's where this really negative thing happened. The self-care stuff was there, but it's written less than a year after the accident. So it was very much in an infantile stage where I was still learning, I was still trying to adapt, still trying to grow with who I am. But now take it a step further on. Okay, here's a little bit more advanced knowledge of what you can do. Here are the things you can look at within your own life of here's the self-care piece that I've learned since then as an adaptation. Okay, so here's how I get even further along. Here's some of the teachings that I do now that are different from what's in my book and do those pieces, do more on journaling. I've got 3 journals out now, but do more on how can that really help you? How can that really change the way that you see yourself moving forward with your goals for your life? And stop doing like it's like a timeline. Mindfulness is being in the moment. There's all the past stuff, the trauma that I experienced over the last 2.5 years, where leaving yourself back there leads to depression and anxiety and woe is me victim mentality. Whereas what about this piece? Like, where are you going? What are you trying to accomplish? What are the things you can do for yourself to get better and to improve your life, but also improve other people's lives? What are the things you can do? What are the things you can give back to help other people with what you've learned? That's where I am. That's what I'm doing. I would love to do seminars. I'd love to do like conferences, speaking conferences where I include myself on my topic, but include others in multiple topics and create a big event. There's one here that's called What Women Want. That's very female based. Why can't I do one about men? Why can't men have one? That's something we don't find in our society is men having one for themselves, where we are more the focus on, yeah, we admit that we need to do self-care too. Like we need to stop the stigma of men have to be alpha males and have to be quiet. Men have to just suck it up, right? That whole mentality isn't helping us because of the suicide rate that we're noticing, right? When you take a look at the suicide rate, how many are men?
Mm.
Right? 4 out of 5. 80% is men because they won't talk. They're expected to be quiet. They're expected to just suck it up, but they can't. And they're struggling. And they're struggling with trying to understand that it's okay to say you're not okay. I've experienced that firsthand, and I teach other men. I'm part of a couple of men's groups where we talk about these things and we openly talk as a men's group on everything and anything. There is no limits to what we talk about. And it's very private. It's a private group so that others don't know what we're talking about. I won't even tell you the name of the group because I'm sworn to that secrecy. That's the level we go to respect the other men that we have in the group, that we don't talk about what we talk about because it's our group. This is our way of supporting each other and to avoid that stigma that some have that we don't want other people knowing. So it's that little secret society piece, right? So that's part of what I'm working on. I'm actually going to look at doing a branch from that group and starting my own within my city to try to meet even face to face, which is better. The people I meet with are one's from Mexico, the rest are from Ontario. So it's there we're a little bit scattered. Some are a little bit closer together, but others of us were all over the place. We're a long ways away. So we don't meet in person, but there's ways of being in support groups where I'd like to start to go into that realm of teaching others, especially with men, to show them that it is okay to say you're not okay and to get the help from others who have been where you are. who have the experience to say, look, you can try this. Here's something you can try to alleviate it. There's some advice on this piece, on business, on relationships, on a couple are going through divorce. Or we go, okay, I've been divorced as well. So it's okay, here's my experience. A couple of us, it's been a few years. So we have that experience to share. Being willing to share is a big piece of that growth part that people need to understand. That's also self-care. Sharing what you've learned and helps you to self-analyze for yourself, but also helps someone else to get through a struggle that they have.
Absolutely. And with the podcast, I couldn't agree more. So if people would like to get in touch with you and learn and what you are doing, what you are planning, where they can find you.
Driving Out of Darkness is the name of my book, and I've used that intentionally for social media links. Jacques Delorme, obviously, you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook there as well. I've also got a page on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. All are Driving Out of Darkness, the name of my book. That's what I've called each of those channels. I'm not as active as I was before, but I'm actually ramping that up again with some branding, new branding, new videos. There's quite a few videos on them now, but I'm going to be doing more of them, just teaching on quick topics. And each video is a minute to a minute and a half. That's it. But it's a quick teaching point on something that I've experienced firsthand and saying, okay, here's a way of looking at this. Here's how I looked at this. And it's a teaching moment to help people to understand there's ways of doing this self-care that are really easy. They're really quick. It's a perspective piece in a lot of ways and trying to teach people a little bit at a time. So if that's something that interests you, by all means, reach out there, follow my channel, and then send me a DM, a direct message, and within Instagram, within TikTok, send me a little quick note saying hi. And if you've got a question, by all means, ask away, and I will even possibly create a video for you that'll answer the question that you have. I'm always looking for ideas on what to put in as content.
Absolutely. And like every time, we will put everything, all the links in the description of today's episode. Jacques, final question. If there was one take-home message that you would love everybody to remember from this conversation, what that would be?
You're not being selfish for taking care of you. In a lot of ways, especially in relationships, it's really difficult to love someone else if you don't love yourself. You need to love yourself first. There's so many people who are trying to find love in the person they're with because they don't love themselves enough. If you can't look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you and mean it, you've got some things to work on. The high five habit, which comes from a book, right? What's her name? Mel
And,
Robbins
and
has a
Robbins.
high five habit, right? Where you give yourself a high five in the mirror first thing in the morning, saying, you got this, you can do this, as a high five habit. That's a book I've read, obviously. I've done a lot of reading on personal development, and I've taken little things like that to help myself. So if you struggle with self-love, a struggle with who you are and loving yourself on where you're at in life, don't just go through life just leaving that. Be okay with not being okay and recognizing it and starting to do the little things to make that better. Start loving yourself for who you are. If you don't like something that you are as part of you, then change it. Sitting there and arguing and complaining about it doesn't do anything. It doesn't make it better. What makes it better is to actually act on it and do something. Do the little things, right? If you can't look in the mirror and say, I love you in the morning every single day and mean it, start
Absolutely.
doing that as a very simple starting piece. I love you. High five. You've got this today. Something as simple as that has a major impact on how you think and being able to get through your day and get through being better than you were yesterday.
Beautiful message. Thank you very much. Well, as we come to the end of our discussion on self-care and building routines for emotional healing, it's important to remember that the journey towards healing is not linear. It's a process filled with ups and downs, setbacks and breakthroughs, but amidst the challenges, there is immense potential for growth, resilience, and transformation. We all need to remember that self-care is not a luxury reserved for special occasions. It's a fundamental necessity for our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. In fact, Eleanor Brown said, Self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. Jacques, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, for sharing so much about yourself, your story, and your mission with us. I truly enjoyed our conversation. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, we would love to know what you think about this topic. Do you have a self-care routine already? If so, share with us your experience and tips. But if, like many of us, taking care of yourself feels a low priority most of the times, I'm sure you will find today's episode very inspiring. And if you need extra help, do check Jacques' website, his work, his book, and follow him on social media. You will find all the links in the description of today's episode. Hopefully not, but if you have been affected in any way by the topic we discussed today, as always, I invite you to seek professional help. Join me next time when we will continue exploring inspiring and challenging situations. Because remember, we are together in this journey. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this content, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to hit the notification bell and like this video. See you in the next one.